You guys have given me a lot of great feedback on the last video that I shot with my parents, Rand and Angie. And so I'm excited to bring them back on camera and discuss a lot more questions that I've received from clients that I'm working with right now. I put out a poll to a lot of clients that I'm working with right now that reached out from YouTube, asked them what they would like to hear from my parents, and they gave me an awesome list of questions. So we're gonna dive into that right now. So we're gonna go over questions such as information on the airport, the elevation, the winter, the availability to stores in comparison to other bigger towns. We're gonna talk about internet, church, healthcare, doctors, barbers, four-wheeling, and much, much more. So let's dive into it. So hey, Mom and Dad, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, John, good to be with you today. Thanks for having us back.
Thanks for joining. So let's just jump into it. And Dad, I'll ask you first. And then we'll jump into some other questions from there. But the first question is just going to be, were there any complications or do you have any suggestions on how you adjusted to higher altitude?
Great question, John. I think part of the challenge of moving to higher elevation is grappling if you have an underlying lung issues or heart conditions that might limit your activity level that would allow you to function less efficiently at higher altitude because you're actually getting less oxygen. Yeah. One of the things that we know is that as we age, our lung capacity is diminishing slowly, and it is one of the things that's a challenge up here. I think one of the good things is as you get acclimatized to Durango and begin to exercise slowly and build up your oxygen or your hemoglobin hematocrit levels, then you're probably more likely to be able to enjoy moving from one place to another. Jumping right here, as you might recall when we did a quadrathlon a few years back, and we're working in the Navy at sea level, and went to 11,000 feet and tried running. It was a big deal.
It's huge.
So and that's at your age. So right. Our age is a little different, and it's just one of those things where you just anticipate. Depends on your fitness level as well, as you know, right? So.
By the way, guys, if you're even thinking about moving to Durango or Southwest Colorado, I'm a licensed realtor here in Durango and Southwest Colorado. Love to help you with all of your real estate needs and be a resource for you here in Durango. Give me a call, text or email, days, nights, weekends. We've got your back when it comes to moving here to Durango and Southwest Colorado. Also more than happy to hop on a Zoom call and go over a map with you and show you some areas that might best fit you after going through your criteria and what you're looking for. Let's jump back into the video.
So if you come here and you're very fit, probably not going to take you as long to acclimatize as it is someone that's coming in and they're maybe out of shape or decompensated. For those people who are using oxygen, I think it could be a challenge to move into this elevation. But I think, there's places that you could live within the Durango area that are at lower elevation than, say, where you live or where we used to live. That probably added another 500 to 800 feet in elevation. So.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it wasn't that much of a change for us because years ago we used to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and our house was at 7,200 feet. Durango is at 6,500, and then in Albuquerque we came from there also, and that's about the same as Denver, Mile High City. So Edgemont was also around 7,000 feet, and Durango, the town, is a little bit lower than that. So talk to your doctor if you have any questions at all about if you would be challenged. If you have sleep apnea, that might be an issue also. Just get your doctor's permission, and also spend time here before you move here to see if you're affected somehow.
Yeah, great suggestion. So next question is, Durango has a regional airport. What has your experience has been with the airport, with the Cortez airport, and just have you had any issues flying out of here and back into Durango?
Well, I think one of the key things, at least from my perspective, is that you're limited to where you can fly to from Durango. You need to go through the hubs of either, for the most part, Denver or Phoenix with United, and then with American, I think they fly into Dallas, Fort Worth.
Right.
American goes to Phoenix and Dallas.
Dallas, yeah. So Phoenix would be the additional place. What we found, though, is that the Cortez airline Denver connection flies for just almost about 50% less cost to fly out of Cortez than Durango. So, if that's something, if you're budget conscious, plus Durango charges to stay at the airport, your car to stay there. Cortez is free, and safety is relatively, I think Cortez is a safe airport. We've left our car there a number of times. Plus the airplane from Cortez to Phoenix is wonderful. It's only like about 12 seats, but you have like this huge leg space in front of you. There's nobody beside you. It's like you've got your own private jet when you fly down to Phoenix.
cool.
Going to Denver, it's a little different because there's a lot more people that apparently are going that direction. But the nice thing about it for us is that we were making connections with smaller airlines that were going into Nebraska, for example, and that's where our Denver Air Connection connects into Nebraska. I'm not sure where else they go into. So that would be something to look at. United, for example, I am in a program, an academic program, where I have to fly to Portland, and so I have to go to United, through United here, and then go to Denver, and then connect from Denver up to Portland, Oregon. So it's okay. I mean, we haven't had any problems with the weather. When we first moved here, I think the first 2 or 3, 4 years we were here, United was who we would fly with a lot, and they were having a lot of airline problems. It seemed like every time we flew with United, there was something going wrong. They would lose our luggage, and we found it on the tarmac, or they would, it was just one thing after
delays, a lot of
one thing after another.
flight
So
delays and even cancellations.
we have had a little bit of that with Denver Air Connection, but very,
as much.
very few
Out of Cortez.
out of Cortez.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, actually, leaving Denver
Oh, I see. Yeah.
at the stopover,
Okay.
yeah, there'd be
Okay.
delays there.
But I mean, all that said, you're only about an hour to an hour and a half from Denver or Phoenix, so that's a nice, as opposed to taking 7 or 8 hours to drive it.
Yeah.
If you do fly out of Cortez, just under an hour
About an hour.
to get from here to Cortez Airport.
Yeah.
To
Perfect.
drive
To
to
drive.
Cortez.
To
Right.
get to that,
Okay.
yeah. But it's worth
What have
it.
your experiences been?
Well, I've had a lot of negative experiences with United. Even slept on a cot at the Denver airport with United, and I think that's just an airline thing. It's not
It's not
necessarily.
Durango.
Yeah, and as far as if the weather here affects the flights, probably just like flying into any other town that has winter.
Right.
There
not-
has been some delays and stuff, but not a lot.
Yeah, and I would say I have friends that travel a lot, and they'll even sometimes just fly out the night before, and if they need to be somewhere in 2 days
Yeah,
instead of
right. Yeah.
right away,
Yeah.
or right before they need to be there. So the next question really is: are you happy with the availability of stores, supplies, as opposed to Albuquerque, where you're from?
I think here in Durango there is Walmart and Walmart. And there are some other clothing stores at the mall. I think right now some things have closed down, but there's TJ Maxx and Ross at the mall. And there's some clothing stores downtown that probably cost more.
You've done some shopping in Farmington. Right?
We like to go to Farmington. I like crafts. I like to do things. So they've got Hobby Lobby there. I think they've got Michaels.
Yeah.
There. We even went to Farmington, right, to buy a new washing machine
Okay.
that we needed because we couldn't find one here.
And for everyone watching, Farmington's about an hour away.
Yeah, or a little bit less.
I
Yeah.
wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, and one other question was availability of stores to maintain your house. And there's so many builders here, so many houses being built that the contractors have to have plumbers nearby, plumbing stores. They have to have all that stuff. So it's available, that kind of stuff to do maintenance on your house.
But it's like a lot of things. We find that the shelves in Home Depot, for example, and Walmart are sometimes the things we're looking for, they're empty. And so
Especially at Walmart.
I think I become an Amazon shopper for a number of reasons, and I use eBay a little bit, but Amazon just because I can send stuff back and I don't have to, if I use Prime, I don't have to pay for shipping. But the other side of that is I can also find exactly what I'm looking for just from my office, and I don't have to go to the store because usually if they, like for example, if you look at availability for even Ace Hardware or Home Depot, you can say they've got some on the shelf, and then you go down there and they have nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you don't really know, and the reality is it's unless you need something really, really quickly, it just seems like and that's too bad because I'd rather do business here locally, but it's just one of the things where they, part of the other contributing part of that is that they have a hard time filling positions in the stores. And so stocking and restocking and ordering, those kinds of things just probably, I suspect, don't get done as efficiently as if they had a fully staffed store. And that's constant in Durango, the help wanted signs and the need for people to work. And I think that's one thing we weren't expecting. I just figured that all the college kids would take jobs in town. And
I think that is going on everywhere, though, because of COVID.
well, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
But I mean, it's you know, it's just one of the things we didn't expect, and that's what you wanted us to talk about. But you make do. Like I heard some good news yesterday that I don't even know if you know this, but I think they broke ground on a new city market by the hospital.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So that means
Sounds
that
good,
they've got
yes.
City Market has Durango going to be pretty well covered
Right.
from the east side all the way through to the mid and then the north side of town.
Yeah.
So no matter where you live, you'll have access to ease of shopping.
Beautiful.
So they're, go ahead.
We like the side of town that's closer to the hospital because I think as you age, you think a little bit more about physician visits and stuff. Plus, it's also closer to the airport. Plus, now it'll be, well, it is already closer to Home Depot and Walmart. Plus, it's now going to be close to shopping once they get the grocery store put in, which would be really cool.
So there's already 2 city markets with this kind of the main grocery stores. And we have it north and mid downtown. And then this third one going in. Plus there's an Albertsons grocery store and Walmart to shop for food.
And we've got Nature's Oasis and Natural Grocers, which are both pretty much right in town.
Yeah, 2 health food stores. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. No, I appreciate that. I think that helps a lot. Is there anything specific, if we don't mind, let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. Maybe give a specific example, because you guys just remodeled your entire home. Were there any specific really hang-ups? Because I get a lot of questions about if we buy a home that we need to drop $200,000-300,000 grand into, what issues are we going to run into? Do you feel like you really ran into just couldn't find somebody to do the work? Do you feel like it was pretty easy?
Well, there's 2 issues that I ran into. One is, again, there are contractors who are willing to bid on the job, but the problem that we found again and again is that the people they have working for them aren't always reliable about showing up for work every day. So there's a fair number of people that are in that situation, whether it's landscapers or even plumbers or carpenters or whatever. The other thing that's really fascinating to me is that, like, her mother-in-law's, my mother-in-law's house, your mother, sorry, they needed to re-roof her house and put new gutters in. And we had to put a roof on our house, and I asked the roofer about replacing the gutters, and he said, well, the going price of gutters, and I'm not mistaken, was $25 a foot here in Durango. In Nebraska, the same installation, gutter costs, everything was $7 a foot. It's over 3 times higher here, and that's what you're going to find when you go into building, because now we're well over, $500 a square foot to build.
$550, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's just, the cost, and what they're finding is that I was talking with somebody yesterday about that very issue about gutters, and the guy I think he was real honest with me, and he just said, the gutter people are charging outrageous prices for gutters because they can get it. So now the roofers are starting to go into the gutter business as well because they want to make that kind of money too. Yeah. So that's one of the challenges of living here. And the other thing is we found out is that the contractors coming in here, they if they don't buy local, then they'll be blacklisted, and won't be able to get products and stuff, I guess. That's just what one contractor told me, which is like going, wow. So in essence, then they have to pay these exorbitant prices. They can't go to Albuquerque and pick up your stuff for you and whatever. So I think shipping is huge for a lot of people. Yeah. For example, and I'm going on, but I mean, like I can take a bottle of wine and I can buy that bottle of wine at Walmart for like $9, but if I go to the liquor store, it's going to be $11 or $12 for the same bottle of wine. And I'm like, I'm going, well, okay, so if they don't stock it at Walmart, you're still paying, you go to Total Wines in Albuquerque or something, and you're still paying $2 to $3 more per bottle of wine here. And again, it's all because the shipping is so expensive. So if you can...
And there's not as much competition for people to keep prices lower. Yeah. And I was going to say about gutters. When we first moved here, it's almost been 6 years. We couldn't find a house we wanted to buy, so we had one built. And our builder insisted on putting gutters in, but all the other homes around us didn't have gutters. So his reasoning for gutters was to protect the foundation, to keep it drier.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
Well, and the ironic part about it is the other houses had problems with water in their crawl
ice.
spaces. Yeah, and
Ice
it was a mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
again,
gutters are good.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on internet speed? Just how have you
we were talking
felt
about
about internet?
Well, in the Edgemont area, I was the neighborhood watch coordinator there, so I took a poll of all the neighbors and asked, what internet service do you have, what works, what doesn't?
Yeah.
And most of us had Spectrum.
Okay.
Some people, they knew how to route or wire or whatever the stuff themselves, and they were able to get better speeds. Spectrum was not very fast.
I have the
But
same
we
issue.
were kind of stuck with it, and now we live a few miles from there, and we have a different server, and kind of the same problems.
Yeah.
It's fast enough when you're on it,
Right.
but it kind of goes out every once in a while.
Makes sense. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll interject too and say that I'm the same way. I think they're not very good where we live in the Animas
What
Valley,
server do you
north of
have
town.
there?
We have Spectrum as well.
Okay.
And yeah, in the Animas Valley, north of town, 10, 15 minutes north of town, in that whole area, I think, just because it's so tucked in. But Starlink, for everyone watching, Starlink just dropped their price to, what is it, $2.99 for their startup fee, and then I think it's $150 a month. So it is more, but their speeds are like 5 times higher than what we get now. So
okay.
Starlink is a really good option.
I think some people have gotten boosters,
Yeah.
and I also think, I know, and again, you can correct me on this, but I was thinking we're still at a 4G, but maybe we're at a 5G.
For 5G.
We're 5G.
Everywhere in town?
Pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, so I mean, it depends
think
on
so.
what you have, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then related to that is cell phone service. We have had Verizon ever since we've lived here. And on your cell phone, you can use Wi-Fi, make Wi-Fi calls. So I always set it on Wi-Fi.
Right.
But the only problem that we've had is in Edgemont Highlands,
Yeah.
if you just go up a couple blocks, which you go up in elevation, and further up, which is going north from Highway 240, we didn't have service at all.
Yeah.
So you might have problems.
Well, and
with
also,
that.
if you recall, when we used our phone, even where we lived in the meadows, Edgemont Meadows, we had phone calls dropped all the time.
And that
Yeah, I
hasn't
was-
happened for a few
I was
years.
talking to
though.
you on it. And yeah.
Yeah,
it
well,
dropped.
now that's because we're down here now.
That's
we
true.
Don't, we don't have phone call droppage here where we live,
Yeah.
and that's the advantage of being a little closer to town.
But with that said, again, for you guys watching, Edgemont, we keep bringing up Edgemont. If you're not aware, if this is your first time to the channel, we'll throw up a couple clips or a couple thumbnails of videos that we just did all about Edgemont, as well as the east area. I just did one on the east area of Durango. We'll put those thumbnails up here on the screen so you can check those out later. Anyway, let's dive back into it. For people that just aren't accustomed to the snow, I've got a lot of clients coming out here from either Arizona, Texas, or other areas that they're just not used to the snow. Just give your suggestions on how to cope with it, first of all, and just what your experiences are in general, and maybe give a few examples, few stories of how just it's either been easier or harder.
Well, we were both from Nebraska.
Okay.
So we grew up in snow and snow drifts and driving on ice. And one thing I would tell people is make sure you know how to drive on ice. If you don't know how, then go in an empty parking lot and practice.
Good
Because
idea.
you will have to drive on some ice being here.
Yeah, you definitely will.
Yeah.
I can
They're
say that
pretty
too.
good about removing snow with the snow plows, but the
very good.
ice
I agree.
is going to be,
Yeah. And in parking lots too. Like
Yeah.
you'll find it there. It's a good place to practice, but
Yeah.
you'll also find it there when you're not trying to
Yeah.
practice.
yeah, if you don't, I'm an expert on driving on ice, I think.
So they can call
So-
you for
so-
lessons.
So if you don't know how, this is what you do. When you're driving and you hit some ice and the back end of the car starts to go one direction, that's the same direction that you turn your steering wheel, where your back end is going, and it straightens your car out.
So you don't just hit the brakes.
You do not hit the brakes. I taught you well.
You tell me well.
So you slowly pump on the brakes when you're on ice. Yeah.
Thank you.
And yep.
It's a good
There you
lesson.
go.
Okay, so as the one who took care of most of the snow removal, let's talk about my feelings about snow removal.
Let's do it.
One of the things you have to realize is the higher in elevation you go, the more snow you're going to get. And the further away from Durango, like areas like Lemon Reservoir and Vallecito Lake, beautiful places in the summertime. But guess what? They got a ton more snow than what you have here in town. One of the things we did, we recently moved from Edgemont down to where we are now, and it's interesting because even the plants are different. We have pines, but we have a lot more scrub oak and kinds of things you'd see in the high desert of northern New Mexico. But one of the things that we discovered, two things, is that the first year we moved here, and the next day, for the next, 3 or 4 months, it snowed almost every day. We had 110 inches of snow total.
I was so excited, being from Nebraska and then living in New Mexico for 40 years and then coming here. I was so excited to have snow, so I measured every snowfall. And that winter, the winter of 2018 and 19, we had 9 feet of snow total. And so, we were told that happens maybe every 10 years.
Yeah,
That was a
7
lie.
to 10.
That was a lie.
That was
because
a lie, because
it
3 or 4
happened
years
again.
later it happened
We got it,
again.
yeah, well, last year.
But anyway, go
Last
back
year
to-
was, well, anyway, so what I ended up having to do, we did a couple of things. One, you be prepared to buy a snow blower, or have, because you're probably not going to find somebody that's going to come and do your
Driveway.
There are people, but it's hard to find.
Yeah.
And speaking of snow blowers, you bought one, and then it wasn't strong enough for the amount of snow.
Well,
or
no,
the
actually,
wetness.
I bought one that didn't have the right carburetor in it for our altitude, and they tried to order a carburetor, but it was a Scandinavian or something. It was an American made. It's like Husqvarna or something, and they couldn't get the carburetor, so we ended up getting a different snowblower.
So what kind was the
Well,
best then?
we ended up getting, I think it's called a 3-stage snowblower, where it can actually go through ice as well. Crusty kind of stuff. If you're not getting much snow, a lot of these snowblowers, they have kind of rubberized blades, and they're okay just for getting rid of light snow. But if you get into the heavier snows, you're going to need a bigger blower. And the other challenge you have is that if you're in a place that has an HOA, or you live in the city, I suspect they do the same thing. They're coming through with a snow plow, and they're plowing all that snow at the end of your driveway, and you got to figure out how to get rid of this giant berm of snow. I guess that's the right word, berm of, and that could have been wet, and now it's frozen because it was last night that they did that. Now you got this ice berm that you have to plow through with your snow plow, and the older you get, the harder that becomes, for one thing, and unless you have a little four-wheel, what do you call that?
Yeah, an ATV.
ATV with the
UTV.
plow, maybe you could blast through that with that, but it's really an inconvenience, and there's not much you can do about it because the HOAs pretty much run the roost when it says that that's what they pay their people to do, is get the snow off the roads. So the other thing I ended up having to do was we got a device, and I think you might have a video of it somewhere where you can sweep your. It's a really cool device, and actually
A roof rake.
At the time we bought it, I think it was only one company doing it, but I think other people have kind of figured out how to make the same thing. But it's got about 5 feet of tarp, which is about this wide, and it's attached to a device at the top, and you have poles that pull that out, and you could actually go up, and it kind of cuts the snow, and the snow falls down on this tarp, so it takes it at least 5 feet away from your house, so you're not dropping it right at the edge of your foundation.
Yeah, that's something too, because that same winter, people were told that the snow's too heavy, we need to get the snow off of our roofs.
Yeah.
So you can plan on having to do that.
Yeah, and again, it varies on the winter, because this last winter we got half that much snow.
Yeah.
And then not even. Then last winter we got similar, I think.
Yeah.
So and then reference point for everyone watching again, Durango Weather Guy is our local weather guy. Go to his site, and he does a very good job of showing you the amount of snowfall he's predicting for each neighborhood. And then people will send in their reports of how much they actually got, and then he'll post how much you got. So you can go on there, look at the past year, get a feel. What would you say an average day was in Edgemont? compared to here as far as how much snow you might have gotten? Not an average, but maybe just a random day out of
day?
winter.
That's tough because last winter was pretty mild for everybody. I
Yeah,
think.
but maybe give last winter, and we'll just caveat it with it. It's
Well,
pretty
they're
mild.
anywhere from no snow to over a foot
Yeah,
a
we
day.
still had days where
Yeah, I
fuck.
used the snowblower
So-
maybe 3 times last year.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4
a good
times, and I
example.
had one guy.
Here or the last
yeah,
year at
here.
Edgemont?
Well, this is the last
here.
year. Yeah, last winter I used the snowblower here in this house 3 or 4 times, and we had a guy come and we had somebody come and do. We have a U-shaped driveway now, and we had somebody come and plow that off once.
And we had it set up that if we got, how many inches he would come
If it was over 6 inches
Then
of
he would
snow
come.
accumulative, he
at
would
one
come.
time.
and he'll come.
Yeah. So we
that's what
never-
you could do
That only
too.
happened 3 times then.
Yeah, so
Much easier.
yeah, it was a much milder. But here's the deal, you got to think about the physicality of moving that much snow. If like our first year we had snow, we stood up and we couldn't even reach the top where the snowblower had blown the snow on the sides of the driveway. We got pictures of.
Well, I
of
couldn't reach the top. You could.
you could, yeah. And well, she's at least 5 foot. So that's all I'm saying is that but the thing is how good are your shoulders at throwing snow up there? If your snowblower, it can get it up there so far, but then the same thing of getting that stuff off your roof, you got to get out there, and that's a fair amount of work
And
to
your
pull
deck.
stuff off
And
the
to
roof
snow
the
and to
deck.
shovel off your deck and
you
picking
have
up the
it-
snow and
If
shoveling
you
it over
use
the
your
rail.
deck, we're pretty much outdoor people, and so we used our deck year round, and I always made an effort to clear that off because I like to sit outside. It's the nice thing about Durango is if you have the right kind of setup with your house, you can capture the warmth of the sun and sit outside and read. It's just a wonderful, to me, that's what I like about it. I can be here in the winter, and on a nice sunny day, you can be outside in the sun and sit there, and it feels like, you're going to be clothed, but it's going to feel like it's maybe 50, 60 degrees in that location. But yet at the same time, you can throw on your skis or your cross country or your snowshoes, and or downhill and get out and thoroughly enjoy winter sports.
Yeah.
And as you know, you have grandkids and you have kids that live close by, you buy these big tubes and you go tubing. We have right on our property of a place we can go tubing, which our little 1 and 2 year olds and 3 year olds
That's
now
fun.
just really enjoy, along with their parents. It's amazing. I didn't think their parents would enjoy it, but they were blowing down the.
There's some good hills.
Yeah.
There's some good hills in town. So to jump to the next question, if regarding church, have you been satisfied with the options in town? And can you just discuss a little bit more on the side of, do you feel like it's a little more conservative or more liberal in town? And maybe just discuss your feelings on those hotter topics, maybe.
I
some.
think that Durango is probably liberal, but there's a lot of conservative people who live here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good-sized churches. And so I think that liberal people would feel comfortable here and conservative people
Yeah,
would
it's
feel
a
comfortable.
good mix.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
Okay.
And there's Bible studies available for people who want to go to Bible studies. And I don't see, maybe I'm just not aware of any non-Christian churches. I don't know if there's any Buddhist churches
there's
or
some.
Yeah,
there might be some.
There's a hodgepodge of other faiths that live within Durango. One of the things that I would say is, again, remember we're a small mountain town, less than 20,000 people, I believe, in population still, even though if we don't count the county and
Right, the county's
if you
almost
go-
50.
Yeah, so I mean, and you just look at the town though in general, and you say, well, we don't have any mega churches in our town. I would be surprised if any of the churches probably are more than 500 or 600, maybe 800. I don't know.
I think 300 to 400 probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't think you're going to find it when you say large churches.
Yeah.
And then I think probably what you're going to find, though, is that just like a lot of places, as you move away from the city, people become more conservative in their worldview and their faith, and you'll find that the churches tend to follow the same, or the people who go to those churches follow the same kind of thinking.
Yeah.
As you move into urban areas, you'll find that there's going to be more churches that are going to be more progressive or liberal, if you want to call them that, and there's going to be more conservative or evangelical or even fundamentalist. Depends on how you define all of those things in your own mind within the context. So I think Durango will give you, it's kind of like a smorgasbord, but it's not a huge smorgasbord.
Sure.
You know, you might find one or two of each one of those that is there. You know, there's probably, I would say maybe a dozen or so churches in Durango that are Christian-based churches. There are other things out there.
Yeah, perfect. No, I appreciate that. And how do you like the healthcare system, just in general? You just kind of speak to your experiences, any examples?
Well, don't you think, I think we both have good primary care providers. That's kind of a crapshoot, if I can use that word, only because, with healthcare changing, that's the way it is across the country. You don't really know how long your primary is going to be here. They could be moving at any time. That's the same way as in Durango. People get unhappy with salaries, they leave. They start aging, they start dropping down their hours. So that's the same everywhere you go, right? I think once you get beyond your primary care provider, though, that's where it gets a little sketchy. Because
you had your experience with your urologist. He saw a specialist and then needed further care and went to Mayo Clinic for some care, and his urologist here left. Okay. So there wasn't a urologist.
Wasn't any follow-up,
He didn't have the follow-up that he needed.
Unfortunately, they kind of dropped the ball where I had procedures done and I didn't get the follow-up I needed here. And that's the other side of the coin. And I think...
And that could happen anywhere also.
That's true. And I think, we had situation where you were trying to get some supplies for some stuff and got to run around forever. There's... Again, it's just, the places that you don't have as many options. That's probably the bigger way to look at it. I think, for example, we now have a urologist now finally, and now they're looking for another urologist, but it's been, several years since trying to fill that. They had people coming in from Colorado Springs that were drive-bys, as I called them. They weren't here permanently. We've got one good gastroenterologist that I really like.
Excellent.
He left, but then he came back. So I'm glad he's back in our community. We've got a good orthopedic surgeon, hand guy. He's really good.
So we do have most every specialist.
I think we've got, but...
We have never dealt with cancer, thank God. So I don't know about oncology, what oncologists...
Well, all we can say, Angie, is that could be true, that could not be true. But the reality is that I think what I would say is that even the urologist that came here, who's pretty good, still doesn't have the experience that you would get if you were at Mayo Clinic or other places with his experience. And so what we find is that some specialists here do a pretty good job, and other specialists, like I can think of one that you saw that was terrible and really shouldn't have been practicing here. We wouldn't want to see him.
Yeah.
So
my experience was I have a health condition that I need to see a specialist for, and I'm a retired nurse, and I should have picked up on the fact that doctor did not touch me. He did not do any physical exam, nothing. And I thought, well, this is not right. And so I got a hold of his charting, and he charted all of this stuff that he did, and he did not do any of it. So that got reported.
That's good to know.
So I think for anyone who needs medical care, which we all do, and this is something that I've shared with a lot of people, when you move somewhere or you just want to find another doctor, Google their name and write reviews. Dr. So-and-so reviews. Not the reviews at the clinic where they work, but just out there. Google reviews. And sometimes you'll see peer review where the medical people that they work with can review them. Sometimes you see that, but you want patient reviews on these people. And I also, having been a nurse, people would call me at my work in a hospital setting and ask, well, who's the best OBGYN doctor? Well, ethically, we can't, a medical professional or anyone can't give just one name. but they can give more than one. So I would give more than one name, but the first name I would give would be my top choice of who they see.
Yeah.
And then just word of mouth, talk to people around town and see who they see, who they recommend.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you're even thinking about moving to Durango, give me a call, text, email, days, nights, weekends. Like I mentioned in other videos, we're more than happy to put the drone in the air, give you an area tour if you haven't seen a specific area you're looking at in the videos you're seeing. More than happy to do a home walkthrough as well as a drone tour of a specific property for you. So give me a call, text, email, days, nights, weekends. We've got your back when it comes to moving here to Durango, Southwest Colorado, as well as New Mexico. We'll see you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey,
Bye.
bye.